Have you ever noticed that some women don't have soft, delicate features, yet they're still incredibly attractive? Not in a typical cute way, more like striking, almost magnetic. Their faces feel sharp, structured, even slightly intimidating at first glance, and somehow that makes them stand out even more. You look at them longer, you remember their face, and the confusing part is, a lot of those features are traditionally considered masculine. A stronger jaw, straighter brows, less round eyes, but instead of taking away from their femininity, those features seem to enhance it. And here's the surprising truth. Some of the features you think are too masculine are actually the reason these faces stand out. Attraction isn't a strict checklist of masculine versus feminine traits. It's not about removing strength to make a face softer or adding softness to make it more appealing. What actually matters is balance. The human brain processes faces incredibly fast. Within milliseconds, it picks up on structure, symmetry, and contrast. And what tends to stand out the most isn't extreme softness or extreme sharpness. It's harmony between both. A slightly stronger feature can make softer elements feel even more feminine. A sharper structure can give the face clarity and definition. This is why some faces feel more memorable, not because they follow traditional rules, but because they break them in a controlled way. There's something subtle but powerful about how the eyes are framed, and it often starts with the eyebrows. When we talk about a more prominent eyebrow, we're usually referring to brows that are slightly thicker, straighter, or sit a bit lower on the face compared to highly arched, delicate brows. This is typically considered a masculine trait because male faces tend to have stronger brow ridges and denser hair growth in that area. But here's where it becomes interesting on women. A slightly stronger brow creates visual structure around the eyes. It adds definition and contrast, which makes the eyes appear more focused and intentional rather than just soft and passive. From a psychology standpoint, your brain reads faces based on contrast. When there's more contrast around the eyes, your attention is drawn there more quickly. That's why well-defined brows often make someone look more striking even without makeup. There's also an emotional layer. Very soft, highly curved brows can make a face look constantly surprised or overly gentle. On the other hand, slightly straighter brows introduce a calm, grounded expression. It gives the face a sense of control and presence. But this only works when it's balanced. If the brows become too heavy, too low, or too thick relative to the rest of the face, they can start to dominate the upper face. Instead of enhancing the eyes, they overshadow them. The key is subtle strength, just enough prominence to frame the eyes and add intensity, but not so much that it removes openness. If you let your focus move downward, you'll notice how much the lower face shapes overall attractiveness. The jawline is one of the clearest differences between male and female facial structure. Men typically have wider, sharper, and more angular jaws due to higher testosterone levels during development. Women usually have softer, more tapered jawlines. So naturally, a defined jawline is often labeled as masculine. But in reality, a slightly defined jawline on a woman doesn't make her look masculine. It makes her face look structured. It creates a clear boundary between the face and the neck, which adds visual cleanliness. The brain prefers clear edges because they're easier to process. When the jawline is softly defined, it enhances the overall shape of the face without taking away femininity. It adds polish. Think of it like outlining a drawing. Without an outline, the shape can look blurred. With a subtle outline, everything looks more intentional. There's also a health perception element. A visible jawline is often associated with lower facial fat and better facial muscle tone, both of which the brain can interpret as signs of health and vitality. But again, balance matters. If the jaw becomes too wide or too square, especially compared to the cheekbones and forehead, it can shift the face toward a more traditionally masculine appearance. The goal is not a sharp, aggressive jaw. It's a gently defined one that adds structure without overpowering the rest of the face. Now shifting toward the center of the face, there's a feature that plays with light in a way most people don't consciously notice. Cheekbones are one of the few features that are considered attractive across both genders, but the way they appear can differ. In more masculine structures, cheekbones tend to project outward more, creating a flatter but wider look. In feminine structures, they're often higher and more curved. When a woman has slightly more prominent cheekbones, especially with a bit of outward projection, it creates depth in the face, and depth creates shadow. This is important because your brain uses light and shadow to interpret shape. Faces with natural shadow under the cheekbones appear more sculpted and three-dimensional. That's why makeup techniques like contouring exist. They replicate this exact effect. Prominent cheekbones also draw attention to the center of the face, which helps balance other stronger features like the jawline. They act as a visual anchor, but there's a limit. If the cheekbones become too sharp or too dominant without enough softness in surrounding areas, the face can start to look hollow instead of sculpted. The difference is subtle but important. Sculpted feels healthy and defined, hollow feels drained and less vibrant. The ideal balance is where the cheekbones add structure while the rest of the face maintains softness. At this point, let's pause for a quick exercise that will completely change how you see faces. Open your phone and scroll through photos of people you find attractive. Now slow down your observation. Look at the eyebrows first. Notice their shape, thickness, and how they frame the eyes. Then move to the jawline. Is it soft and blended or slightly defined? Now focus on the cheekbones. Can you see natural shadow or structure there? What you'll start to realize is that many attractive faces are not purely soft. They have structure mixed in. Once you train your eye to see this, you'll start noticing patterns everywhere. In movies, social media, even in everyday interactions. And that awareness completely changes how you understand attractiveness. Now let's talk about something that quietly influences all of these features. Facial fat plays a huge role in how defined or soft a face appears. More facial fat generally creates roundness, which is associated with youth and softness. That's why very soft faces often feel approachable and friendly. But when there's slightly less fat in the lower face, something changes. The underlying bone structure becomes more visible. The jawline appears clearer. The chin looks more defined. The overall face gains shape. From a biological perspective, visible structure can signal health and fitness. The brain picks up on these cues subconsciously, which is why defined faces often feel more attractive. There's also a visual clarity factor. When there's too much softness, features can blend into each other. The face loses separation. A slight reduction in facial fat brings back that separation. But this is where many people misunderstand the concept. Lower facial fat does not mean extremely lean or gaunt. If the face becomes too lean, especially in women, it can lose warmth and look overly severe or tired. The ideal point is where there's enough softness to maintain femininity, but enough definition to reveal structure. There's a small detail in the eyes that has a surprisingly large impact on how a face is perceived. Round eyes are often linked to femininity because they create a wide, open appearance. They make the face look more expressive and approachable. But when the eyes are slightly less round and more horizontally balanced, the effect changes. The face starts to feel more composed and controlled. There's a subtle intensity that comes with it. From a perception standpoint, less round eyes reduce immediate emotional readability. This means the brain takes a bit longer to interpret the expression, and that delay creates intrigue. It makes people look longer. It adds depth to the face. However, this only works when the eyes still retain some level of softness. If they become too narrow or too sharp without contrast from other features, the face can start to look cold or unapproachable. The ideal balance is a neutral eye shape that still allows expression, but doesn't give everything away instantly. Finally, let's zoom out and look at the overall structure of the face. This is one of the most foundational aspects of facial attractiveness, even though most people never consciously think about it. Men typically have wider faces relative to their height, while women tend to have slightly longer and narrower faces. But when a woman's face has a bit more width, especially in the mid-face area, it creates a stronger visual presence. The face feels more grounded, more stable. From a psychological perspective, wider proportions are often associated with strength and confidence. When this is combined with softer features like smooth skin or fuller lips, it creates contrast. And contrast is what makes a face memorable. But like everything else, extremes don't work. If the face becomes too wide without enough vertical balance, it can feel heavy. If it's too long without width, it can feel stretched and less structured. The most attractive faces tend to sit in the middle, balanced, proportional, harmonious. When you step back and connect all of these features, something becomes very clear. None of these traits are attractive because they are masculine. They are attractive because they introduce structure. And when that structure is balanced with softness, it creates harmony. Attractiveness isn't about fitting into one category. It's not about being purely soft or purely strong. It's about how different elements come together. A little bit of sharpness can make softness feel more refined. A little bit of strength can make a face more memorable. And the faces that stand out the most are rarely extreme. They exist right in the balance. That space between contrast and harmony is where real attractiveness lives.